Okay, so in the other game, we moved straight to the Italian Serie A. Yeah, it was a Friday night encounter between Empoli as well as Champions League hopefuls Bologna. And guess what happened? Bologna claiming all valuable 3 points. It was actually Fabian who actually won it at the death for the away side. Giovanni Fabian, he struck right at the depth for Bologna away to Empoli in a Serie A clash on Friday evening, delivering a cruel blow, to David Nicola and his side, who had looked set to earn a hard-fought draw against the Champions League chasers at the Castellini, stadium, right? So, we can get straight into the chase, right? So Bologna, they came into this encounter, ranked fourth in the Serie A standings. Despite having tested defeat to league leaders Inter Milan last weekend, Thiago Motta, had guided the Rosa Blue to a six-game winning streak. Imagine, in a league before then. Before that defeat to, Inter Milan, like I said, they were 6 games unbeaten. They had 6 games won consecutively. 100% record in 6 games for Bologna. And Empoli, meanwhile, had lost 2 on the spin coming into Friday's evening game, losing to AC Milan as well as Cagliari in their last 2 league games. However, Bologna, on the other hand, had to do without their leading goal scorer, Joshua Zirkzee, on the occasion. The Dutchman is expected to be out of action for like 3 to 4 weeks after suffering a setback last weekend. Well, gents, Odegaard, was called up to replace him in the starting 11, while, they have been lacking, in clear, obvious opportunities. It was actually Bologna who enjoyed the lion's share of possession in the opening exchanges. Empoli's Elia Gabriel, did very well to keep the scores level, producing a fine double save shortly after Alex, Salamakers' corner on the 18th minute, while Kapker, Ubanski, had another goal from a set piece for Bologna 10 minutes after, but was also denied by Gabriel, who had marginally easier task this time around. And the finest chance that, came for either side fell to Empoli's Mbaya Niang, with 3 minutes of regular time in the first half left to play. He was released by Nicola Cambiachi, on the halfway line. With every Bologna outfielder camped in the opposition half, Niang unopposed carried the ball right up to the edge of the Bologna area, where he inexplicably failed to get a shot away, allowing Sam Buekema, back in to make a crucial sliding tackle, which resulted in an Empoli corner. And nothing happened from that particular corner, from that resulting corner. And so good were Bologna at keeping, hold of possession. And in the opening period, there wasn't even a single second of injury time played in the first half. But by the halftime whistle, Bologna keeper Lukas, Skorupski, had still not had a shot land on target. Ricardo Orsoloni was introduced 10 minutes into the second period, coming in place of Dan Ndoye on the Bologna wing. Whatever Nicola had said, to the Empoli players during the halftime interval, had clearly had some sort of effect. And, the home side, came out much more urgent in the press and with far more control of their possession when they had it after the break. Still though, there had been no more shots on target from either side by the 70th minute of action. Bologna's best chance of the going, ahead fell to, Salamakers. With just under 10 minutes of regular time to go. Like Niang in the first half, the Belgian broke into space and towards the edge of the penalty area. Salamakers was actually able to get a shot away, though this time round from the left-hand side, it was in the edge of the box, which was kept out brilliantly by the foot of Cabral. But it was a pretty much straightforward game, but credit, you have to just give credit where it's due, because Empoli was significantly, improved in the second half, and despite not producing too many opportunities of their own, they certainly didn't deserve to lose the game either. It's just those things where in football, the gods might not be on your side, so there was always that feeling that Bologna may be capable of dealing a sickening blow to the home supporters, and they did so. And that sucker punch came in the 94th minute. Bologna probably in their final attack of the game, at that point, needed desperately, to get the ball into the area for what looked to be their final shot of the game. And Ricardo, Calafiori, launched a venomous effort towards Cabral, who was only able to spill for substitute Fabian to slam in on the rebound. That was just great reading of the game. And as a result, Empoli remain exactly where they were heading into the game on Friday, in 17th place with 25 points from 29 matches. And all three teams in the relegation zone will play later this weekend. Bologna, meanwhile, secure their position in the Champions League spots for another weekend and are currently just 4 points behind Juventus in third place. So there's so much more to play for in the Serie A. So much more to play for as we wrap up the season. And here we go once again. Right, so Torino clinching an emphatic 2-0 victory away to Udinese. Remember Udinese, you thought they would actually build up from that momentum after clinching and, upsetting, 2-1 victory away to Lazio at the Stadio Olimpico, which actually resulted in the resignation of Maurizio Sarri of Lazio. Right, so now currently Torino took, 3 precious points to actually leave Udinese in danger zone, with Duvan Zapata as well as Nikola Vlasic, actually putting the ball in the back of the net to actually secure all 3 points for the Turin-based side. And it was actually like the free Ulani, who actually managed to claw their way out of the bottom 3, with a shock 2-1 victory away to Lazio on Monday. But Nuhan Perez was actually suspended, with Gerard Delafeu as well as Enzo, Ebose also injured. And we also saw the fact that Ivan Juric sat out of the touchline, ban with Kofi Gigi, as well as Adrian Temeze, Ivan Ilicic, as well as Perez Shoes, all on the treatment table. And to say the least, when you look at this game properly, it was actually an aggressive start from the Granata. Duvan Zapata as well as David, Okere had shots that were just deflected wide. Then Nikola Vlasic, thumped the upright, from the edge of the area. From this particular moment in time, you could see that, no, man, the goal was actually going to come for the away side, Torino. And they eventually broke through, with a strange looping Duvan Zapata header that actually went behind him into the far corner on the Mergem, Vodvoda's, cross, and Hassan Kamara angle drive flashed across the face of goal following that particular moment, following the fact that Zapata put his team ahead. And, Okere's effort at the other end, with the aid of, Maduka, Okoye's fingertips. What I can actually say is the fact that Udinese lost, Martin Baero, to injury, and then Okereke, cut inside from the left to actually force a save. But, Torre was actually there to actually double their lead after the restart. And, Gividas, Genetis, Roberto Pereira in the final third. And then Duvan Zapata's through ball found, Nikola Vlasic, who cut inside Lautaro Giannetti to actually sweep in, the far bottom corner with his left foot. Okay, kept the scoreline down by pairing Duvan Zapata's header on the Raul Bellanova cross, while Florian Tovin, drilled wide, and Festi Ebosele blasted over. So Udinese were actually jeered loudly by the home fans after the final whistle, and they're just not happy with their team's performance. And AC Monza, they continue with their decent run of form, right? And this time they did secure another victory at home over Cagliari, right? And it was actually Maldini magic that made the difference. So it was actually a fantastic Daniel Maldini free kick, which proved enough to actually give Monza all 3 points and stall the Cagliari climb up the table, And the host had won 3 of their last 4. But Danilo D'Ambroso, joined Samuele Vinato and Gianluca, Cabrari on the absentee list. And Sardinians, themselves put themselves, out of the relegation zone with back-to-back victories over Empoli, as well as Salernitana, despite an injury crisis ruling out Yeremina, Gianluca Gaetano, Andrea Petagne, Zito Luvumbo, Leonardo, Pavoletti, as well as Marco, Mankosu, Mankosu. And Eldo, Shumarodov, was pulled back just outside of the box, and Gianluca, Lapadula sent that low free kick inches wide of the near post, managing to actually drill it in under the wall as it jumped. Then Monza, they were able to take a lead with a sensational free kick from Daniel Maldini, who curled it over the wall, thumping the underside of the crossbar and bouncing, over the line, giving, Simon Scafford no chance. Remarkably, his father Paolo also scored against Cagliari's side with Claudio Ranieri as the coach in February 1991 for AC Milan. What? Imagine. And, Danny Mota, Cavallo would have actually made it 2-0 before the break, only to turn a relatively free header wide of the back post. And then Andrea Colpani as well as Danny Mota, drilled efforts across the face of goal, while a crucial, Andrea Carboni defensive intervention, stopped, Shumarudo from actually sliding on to actually tap the ball into the back post. I mean, those were opportunities that they had to take, man. Both sides could have actually scored more, but I'm saying the home side could have won this game by 3-0. Had they converted on some of the chances that they were able to, conjure up. And you look at the fact that even Alessandro Diola's volley, from the edge of the area was actually deflected just inches wide, of the Lapadula. And, he actually had the ball in the net with a sensational volley, but unfortunately, it was offside on the corner, and from that particular moment in time, we also saw Lorenzo, Colombo wasted a promising counter-attack with a scuffed lob, and Roberto Gialladini had his shot charged down. And, that was a massive 3 points from AC Monza at home. And they just continue with their, decent vein of form. And yeah, things are just getting very bad, at the bottom of the table. Because now Salernitana, have been defeated once again at home. And this time at the hands of Lecce by a 0-0. And it was actually the ideal Gotti debut. So Lecce made the ideal debut under the new coach, Luca Gotti, as Norbert, Chiomba's own goal allowed them to actually take all 3 points away from rock bottom Salernitana, So remember coming into this one, the visitors actually sacked coach Roberto D'Aversa, this week following the fact that that headbutting incident of the Hellas Verona striker Thomas Hendry, along with a dismal run of 9 defeats in the last 12 rounds that saw them drop to just 1 point above the relegation zone. And we saw Lamek Banda was suspended, with Mohamed Kaba as well as Castriot Damaku injured, but the 4-3-3 formation was actually scrapped for 4-4-2, and then Salernitana, were practically doomed already, and Gregoris, Castanos set out a ban with Nicola Perozzi, with Boulaye Dia was frozen out, just after refusing to come off the bench. And to say the least, this particular encounter was a very aggressive start from the host, with Antonio Candreva as well as Lorenzo Pirola, testing, Vladimiro, Falcone in the Lecce goal. And however, from that particular moment in time, we saw Lecce took the lead with their first real attack, as Valentin Gendry's cross, from the right was flicked on. And Roberto Piccoli anticipated Norbert Giomba's knock it back, and Nikola Kristovic, scored on the rebound. And Falcone struggled to actually parry, a Joanna volley into the ground from, Brother Rich's cross. And then while, at the other end, we saw Pontus Alchemist, didn't get enough power on the 2, attempts on target. From this particular moment in time, we saw Thomas' basic free kick skimmed the crossbar, and then Falcone made a remarkable reaction save, on, Giulio Maggiore from close range. And Candreva slipped on the turn to actually scuff a volley, and his cross shot was actually fingertipped from under the bar by Falcone. Antonio Candreva, the veteran, really showing his experience, and hopefully his experience can actually help Salernitana to actually escape from the drop and actually not go into the Serie B. And from that particular moment in time, we saw Nkwanko Sime, sprung the offside trap on an Alessandro Zanoli through ball, only to actually fire the ball straight at Falcone one-on-one, and then moments later, the Lecce goalkeeper made a tough reaction save on the deflected Iron Gomez cross. And to say the least, Salernitana, kept on pushing. But nobody was ready to meet the acrobatic Gomez flick back from the byline, and then Lecce, took their first win of the season. Basically, that's their first away victory of the season for the, Lecce. Their first away victory of the season in Serie A. Yes, and as we continue with the Serie A action, Frosinone 2, Lazio 3. And it was actually Castellanos. Now Lazio began life, in the post-Sarri era. And it was actually Castellanos who actually started the game, So, Tati Castellanos came off the bench and actually netted a brace for, the 3-2 comeback win victory, away to Frosinone on Giovanni Martusciglio's only Lazio match after Maurizio Sarri's exit during the week. So, following Maurizio Sarri's resignation and with Igor Tudor on the wings, ready to start on Monday, right? We saw Monticello, was on the Aquil bench trying to stop the rot for 4 consecutive defeats. And it was actually Ivan Provedel was out with a sprained ankle. And Mario Gila, Patrick, Nicolo Rovella, not fully fit, but Matteo Guendouzi returned after serving his 2-match ban, after it was halved on appeal. And then the Canarini, they were actually struggling too, slipping into the relegation zone, after just like 1 victory and 3 draws in like 15 rounds, and then Abdu, Huruai, Kevin Bonifazi, Antoni Ayono, Ricardo Machiza, Matias Lusardi, as well as Sergio Kalach, were still out of action. When you look at this particular encounter, is that it was actually aggressive to say the least from the start. It was aggressive from the start based on like how the host played. We saw Walid, Chidera failed to keep his header down, and Luca Mazzitelli, tested Cherdos, Christos Mandas from the edge of the area. They eventually took the lead, when we saw Nadir, Zortea whipped in across, into the left-hand side. And then Matteo Zaccagnini, allowed Paul Larola a free header at the far post. That was actually a historic moment because that was the 100th goal Frosinone have scored in the Serie A. Yeah, they've only netted 100 times. In the Serie A, they've only netted 100 times. And Ciro Immobile turned wide after combining with Felipe Anderson. Then Francesco Gelli failed to actually get in a tap-in on a Marco, Bresciani, assist. And we did, with the fact that they were building on, some momentum. We talk about the away side, Lazio. They eventually did get the deserved equalizer. They equalized, when Luis Alberto found Guendouzi down the right, and then his cross was swept in, by Matteo Zaccagnini from like 6 yards, getting away from Caleb Okoli. And it was actually the Italians' first strike of 2024. They nearly turned it around, just before halftime, but Stefano Turati, he used his leg to parry Ciro Immobile's angle drive, at the near post. And following the restart, we saw it was basically end-to-end stuff, much balance. The game pretty much in the balance, at 1-1. And following the restart, excuse me. Sorry about that. And then following the restart, we saw Matias Sule, he tested Mandas, and then, Ciro Immobile hit a fresh air shot on Manuel Laziri's cross. Immobile hasn't really been at his best in the past few games. He has really been misfiring, and we did see that. Oh my goodness. Like I said, Ciro Immobile has been misfiring for Lazio in the past couple of games, and we did see Tati Castellanos replacing Immobile, and then he actually scored with his first touch, leaping over Zortea to nod in the Luis Alberto free kick. And following that particular moment, he was actually close to getting another goal, a second goal, after, a sensational volley on the Matias Vecino. Remember Matias Vecino, the Uruguayan? He was on the books of Inter Milan at some point in time. He whipped in a wonderful, volley, but it just like dinked over his shoulder, right? But then Turati, made a great save on both that and the follow-up from Luis Alberto. And, on from the resulting corner, Nicolo Casele's deflected effort, rolled into the base of the upright, with Castellanos the quickest to react on the rebound to get his brace. And it was actually not over, because Frosinone got back into it, when Kelly's corner was actually nodded down by Okoli. Then Khedira used the bounce to actually go into the overhead kick from 7 yards out. And then Khedira had the ball into the net again moments later, but this time, however, he was ruled out for offside when Sule actually intercepted an awful Mendes back pass. And from that particular moment in time, we saw Turati kept Frosinone in the game with the stunning reaction save, to fingertip the Luis Alberto curler onto the far post when it actually seemed impossible not to score. It remained wide open in the stoppages, with Manuel Lazari, firing wide on the counter, and then Sule back making a decisive block on Castellanos. But, it was actually a valuable 3 points for Lazio, and it puts an end to, a streak of like 4 consecutive defeats for the side from the nation's capital. Well, again, Juventus are very disappointing, to say the least. They were very disappointing in yesterday's game against Genoa at home at the Allianz Stadium. They were very disappointing, to say the least. I mean, yes, it was a goalless draw, but they were very disappointing, man. Yes, I get the fact that Juventus hit the woodwork twice, with Samuel Eleng Jr. and Moise Kean, in the stalemate with Genoa, but Dusan Vlahovic was also sent off for dissent. And now that means that the Bianconeri have dropped down to like 3rd place after 1 point from 2 games. But Vlahovic, came back. And what's even ironic is the fact that Vlahovic just came back from suspension. And Adrian Rabiot was on the bench, after a dislocated toe. Though, Milik and Carlos Alcaraz suffered muscular problems. And, the Griffon missed Aaron Martin, Alan Maturo, and the band Stefano Sabelli, following back-to-back defeats, but gave Vitinha his first start. But, well, I guess that's the reason why Juventus are completely out of the title races, because they just don't have that clinical edge, man. It's just that, something is just lacking with this Juventus team. They don't have rhythm in their play. They just cannot get the consistency. They just not that team that can dominate games, consistently, right? Because at most times, whenever you see Juventus winning, sometimes it just takes a bit of luck for them to win. Like that game against Frosinone when they won by 3-2, coming from a 2-goal deficit. It was just luck. Because in most games, they take their foot off the pedal. Yes, give credit to the fact that Wojciech Szczesny, had to make the first save of the match after 7 minutes, pushing away Mattia Panni, glancing header from an Albert Goodmanson free kick. That already tells you a story. For the fact that the opposition are the first people that had the first shot on target, the first real threat at goal, tells you a story. And at the other end, Federico Gatti was the most effective player going forward. He shot from outside the box, smothered, and then meeting a Philip Kostic assist from 12 yards out that was deflected wide. Whereas on top of the fact, Federico Chiesa had penalty appeals, but the foul from, Jed, Spence was outside of the area, and finally Juventus, threatened on 66th minute when Samuel Elicic Jr. struck from the edge of the area, bobbled past Joseph Martinez and bounced off the base of the far post. That was the first real opening and first real chance, first real threat that Juventus provided. Whereas, we saw a Dusan Vlahovic header which shaved, a coat of the plant, a paint off, the upright from an Andrea Cambiaso cross, and then a similar attempt, went over the bar. Juventus even hit the woodwork for a second time, in the 90th minute, as Moise Kean's, Daisy cutter from the edge of the area on, Kenan Yildiz' assist thumped the base of the upright. And, this left, a frustrated figure in Dusan Vlahovic, because he was so frustrated. And he let his frustration get the better of him, after he committed a foul on the goalkeeper in the stoppages. And he was actually booked for a furious response to the call. And he continued, his protest and received the second yellow card moments later. Leaving Juventus down to 10 men and meaning that Vele, he will miss the next game. He'll definitely miss the next game against Lazio. So that was completely unnecessary from Dusan Vlahovic. Completely unnecessary. And it just sums up Juventus' season. It just sums up their season. And then let's get straight to the game that took place earlier on, before the much anticipated clash between Inter Milan as well as Napoli. So it was actually Hellas Verona that took on AC Milan, right? And it was actually a convincing victory for the Rossoneri. I'm talking about AC Milan, winning by 3-1 away from home. So I would say, to be honest, that it was actually a convincing and deserved important victory, and a 6th consecutive positive result in all competitions. So basically, it's like AC Milan have 5 wins in 5 matches in the month of March, and it is an excellent, way to enter, the 2-week league break. Remember, it's an international break. So, and I would say for AC Milan, the Rossoneri, if you're an AC Milan fan back at home, there are many good reasons for you to smile. But, let me just give you a thorough, breakdown, and, important points from, the Rossoneri's victory, 3-1 victory against Hellas Verona. So, look, I would just say, Christian Pulisic, what an incredible signing he has been for AC Milan, because, look, Christian Pulisic, he has scored in 4 consecutive matches, right? And, with the goal at the, Bendagodi, he has achieved like his best goal scoring form in Italy. He has now scored 12 goals in his career, considering all competitions. And, what I can just say about Christian Pulisic is that, he's often decisive. He's often decisive. He's always in the thick of the action, linking up with his teammates. And, he's almost just like, he's flawless in his dribbling, and if, in the last 2 games, his goals had broken the deadlock, this time round, he scored the 2nd goal after smacking an effort, against the crossbar in the first half. And, when Christian Pulisic, when he plays like this, when he's at, having his best game, when he's at his deadliest best, he's the one who often makes the difference in the game. He makes the difference and he makes the team tick, right? So I'll also get furthermore, you have to also look at the fact that AC Milan's, substitutions also made an incredible impact, because towards the end, after Noslin's goal had brought Hellas Verona back into the game, the coach, this sent, Coach Stefano Pioli into panic. Now he had to bring on Musa, he had to bring on Olivier Giroud, as well as Nigerian star man, Samuel Chikwueze, onto the pitch. And, the former did prove invaluable with tackles won, balls recovered and pressed forward in the middle of the park. But, his arrival on the pitch, gave the game so much needed balance and energy to the team, allowing the team to get beyond the Veronese pressure, which was thanks to Olivier, Giroud's, timely layoffs, which was also good, and getting a hold of the ball many times. And that's exactly what you require from your number 9. It's not always about just putting the ball in the back of the net. It's also about ensuring that you hold on to the ball, you keep possession so that your teammates can be able to play. You understand? So that now you make sure that you don't put your teammates on the back foot, right? So the goal that actually put the game to bed, came through, Samuel Chikwueze, and the Nigerians, he has now gotten his long-awaited and much-deserved first goal in Serie A. Remember, he did score against Newcastle in that 2-1 victory at St. James's Park in the Champions League group stages, which unfortunately was not enough to see AC Milan grab knockout qualifications. Now they're in the Europa League quarterfinals, where they will be taking on their Italian rivals, AS Roma. Yes, AS Roma. So remember now, you have to look at the fact that how all 3 subs, were very important, and they sealed the victory for AC Milan, in a game which could have seen some pivotal, pitfalls towards the end. And luckily that was not the case, And let's just say, man, give credit to AC Milan's defense. Their defensive prowess at the back has really, really, being very pivotal for them, because let's look at the goalkeeper, Magnan, as well as, the defense, because in Prague, Magnan, reacted well to, Chitel's effort in the 14th minute in Verona, and he showed his mettle late on, from Swiderski, with the score at 3-1. But they were very important saves, to be honest, probably standard of a goalkeeper of his quality, but, still a big contribution nevertheless, and the result, at the Bender Godi, was the same as the one at Eden Arena. But it came, about differently. In both games, it was a sudden flash and broke the back of the Rossoneri's net, after two excellent displays. Even against Hellas, the team conceded very little, proving very solid at the face of an opponent who looked to keep things light and then counter with pace. So AC Milan, there's been some improvement, over the weeks, to say the least, from the Rossoneri, because right now, remember the Rossoneri, right now, since they've been dumped out of the Champions League, they really need to improve more on their performance. And look, let us just say, it has been weeks of constant growth, to say the least, and the Rossoneri do continue to improve. They take a stock ahead, of the much needed international break, and it is like the final international break of the season, because the international break in November 2023, and the one now beginning in March 2024 has been separated by 25 matches. And indeed, during this period, AC Milan have played 17 league matches, 2 Coppa Italia games, as well as 6 fixtures in Europe, 2 in the Champions League, as well as 4 in the Europa League. And with the team having taken to the pitch so often, there hasn't been much time to reflect. While there have been weeks without any midweek action, albeit not many, so it must be said that the first, proper break in a long time now awaits the Rossoneri, right? So, the past 4 uninterrupted, months have seen Coach Pioli's men continue to improve, compared to the way how they started the season. Remember, AC Milan were very inconsistent at the beginning of the season. They may have been some difficult moments, including like tough to take results as well as injury problems. But the team has been able to respond, through their hard work and, picking up a lot of points along the way. And after their 12th game of the Serie A season, the final match day, before the international break, AC Milan were third, with 23 points. Just 6 behind second place and 3 ahead of 5th place. So it was actually a complicated period, So the team had picked up just like 2 points from 4 matches. But now the situation is like, it's like a complete contrast to how they began. Because now in their 17 league matches since then, the Rossoneri have picked up 39 points, which is 12 victories, which translates to 12 wins, and maybe perhaps 3 draws and 2 defeats. Yeah, remember, they have only lost twice. They lost to AC Monza away from home 4-2. Yeah, they did. And I'm not sure which other team that beat them, but it's only Inter that have actually done better than them, because the league table highlights the progress that the team has made. So Calabria and Co now sit, second with an 11-point advantage over 5th. And, as we wait to see whatever, Italy will have, in 5 teams in the next Champions League, notably the Di Vaiolo, have made marked, improvement in attack. Their goal scoring average, has actually increased per match, with the team having found the net in every game since Matchday 13. And what's actually worth noting about AC Milan is that various players have pitched in with goals. 3, Olivier Giroud, Pulisic, as well as Rafael Leao have reached double figures this season, in all competitions. And, Loftus-Cheek as well as Jovic close to joining the group. And defensively, the Rossoneri have made strides, going forward in recent weeks. Pioli's men have kept 5 clean sheets in 2024. And in general, they have afforded their opponents much less space in recent Serie A outings, also thanks to the return of several players. When, the league resumes, the final sprint, awaits, and the Rossoneri still have the chance to actually achieve, important objectives. And second place, which would also secure qualification for the Super Coppa Italiana, is in their grasp, while they are in a chance of actually winning European competition in the form of the Europa League, where they will face off against AS Roma. And the aim is, for progress to continue. And certainly, as an AC Milan fan back at home, I also hope for that trend to continue. And in other Serie A news, AS Roma 1, Sassuolo 0. Yeah, with this AS Roma team, there's been so much improvement under coach Daniele De Rossi, to say the least. Because now, AS Roma were once again able to pull off a crucial victory, on their home territory, as they faced a desperate Sassuolo side on Sunday night. And to say the least, it's a very important victory for, the Giallorossi, because now the Giallorossi have now secured all 3 points. And thanks to a wonderful shot by Lorenzo Pellegrini, he killed a wonderful shot from outside the penalty area, which gave, the team from the nation's capital a well-deserved lead over Sassuolo. And look, the captain's performance did not go under the radar, because let me be honest, for me, he deserves to be the man of the match, and the main reason as to why, Roma's, have been so successful, against, Sassuolo. And moreover, Gianluca Mancini also earned himself a badge of honor, in the game. But I will also say that the defender, really put on he showed some tenacity, and it was so audacious. He showed so much focus alongside his, defensive partner Diego Llorente. And on the other hand, Hussam Aouar as well as Rick, Karsdorp, were on the receiving end of most criticism for their respective performances. And let's just say, Roma, they're on the right track, and if they continue like this, they will win the Champions League. I mean, they will, get Champions League football, because now they have to challenge Bologna, who are in 4th place. So it's between 4th and 5th. And right now, Roma, if they continue with this consistent results, they might as well secure a spot in the Champions League next season. You understand? Yeah, so in a big match feature, which saw like the log leaders, the runaway log leaders, Inter Milan, right, taking on defending champions Napoli. So that was like log leaders versus like defending champions Napoli, right, at the San Siro. And yes, the score resulted in a 1-1 stalemate, although it didn't really do much, in terms of the, way both teams stand on the table. As for Napoli, it doesn't really do much for them because they've had a dreadful season, Remember now, Napoli are like, 9 points behind 4th place Bologna, so they far off the Champions League spot qualification spots. Whereas Inter Milan are still 14 points ahead of 2nd place AC Milan. So this result really does not affect anybody. Well, it doesn't do much for Napoli, but it doesn't affect the runaway leaders Inter Milan, to say the least. But, as you get straight into this game, yes, the score was 1-1, but the defenders were actually like the stars of the show, despite the attacking talent, that, both teams possess, right? And, it was actually, some of Serie A's top attacking talents, were on show at the San Siro, And we're talking about, the strike pay between Lautaro Martinez as well as Marcus Thuram for Inter Milan. And whilst Napoli's talisman Victor Osimhen was not able to start the game, but Netope, could only boast of formidable likes like Kivishka, Kvaratskhelia, Giacomo Raspadori, as well as Matteo Politano starting against, Inter Milan, right? But, there were no forwards or wingers that were able to score or assist, a goal on the night, and a lot, was down to the rock-solid defenders from both backlines because chances were very few and far between for Martinez and Thuram. And Napoli defenders, Amir Ramani as well as Juan Jesus marshaled, their penalty area very well. And, to say the least, it was the same story at the other end, And only real good chance that, Napoli fashioned, was the one that they scored from, which was the result of Inter switching off on the corner. So it was really not much of an interesting game, as you would say, as you would really expect, because on paper, Napoli versus Inter Milan obviously is a game that always produces the fireworks needed. It's always the games that always keeps you on the edge of your seat. But in tonight's encounter, there was really nothing much to play for. It's not like it was a title race, but yes, it's still big clubs. Some of Italy's big guns going head to head once again. And right, the defenders did shine. And the forwards, failed to impress, right? And, the defenders, I would say, like, the defenders didn't even just do their main jobs very well. They also popped up with goals, because it was, the former Manchester United wing-back Matteo Darmian who actually showed that he is more than just a reliable and versatile, defensive presence on the right flank in the first half. And it was actually the 34-year-old, Red Devils man that scored Inter's opening goal. And it was not like a Napoli striker to respond to Damian's goal in the second half. Rather, it was actually the defender, Juan Jesus, who took advantage of a free header in the box. So neither side, were able to get the best out of their star players. So it's just one of those games where, the players at the back were able to get forward and provide the threat that was lacking otherwise. But, to say the least, I thought maybe Inter Milan, they still reeling from that Champions League exit, in the last 16 after losing to Atletico Madrid, via penalty shootout in the second leg. And, it was really not a great week for them because they had ambitions of at least maybe winning a Champions League and also adding to, their title credentials of the Scudetto. So it was a very disappointing week for them. And hopefully, in future, they will be able to bounce back. Even their talisman, Lautaro Martinez, will get over that, spot miss, in the penalty shootout as he plays his effort over the bar. But, it happens to the best players. The greatest players of all time have all missed penalties. So he's not the first and neither is he the last. And hopefully he can get over it.